Tell the audience, 37 years young, it's not an age question, it's a stage question. Tell the audience why you believe you are ready to hold the most powerful position in the world.
So look, I don't believe anybody should have the hubris of believing they're ready for that before they actually occupy that position. But I'll tell you this, I do have a vision for this country at a moment when I think we're suffering a national identity crisis. You ask most people my age, really any age, what does it even mean to be an American today? You get a blank stare in response. And I think that's a black hole. That is a black hole of identity at the heart of the American soul. And when you have a vacuum that runs that deep, that is when poison begins to fill the void. Partisan division, division on the basis of identity politics, whatever it is, that's a dangerous vacuum. And I think the right answer is that we should fill that vacuum with the vision of American national identity that runs so deep that it dilutes these poisonous agendas to irrelevance. And I'm running to revive those basic ideas that I think most of us agree on. Meritocracy, free speech, open debate, self-governance over aristocracy. I don't care if you're black or white or Democrat or Republican. Most Americans agree on these basic rules of the road, but they can't be sure that everyone else feels the same way because you don't feel free to talk about it anymore. Well, you know what? This is a cultural campaign to start talking openly again in America. It's based on a vision that I've developed. I've written 3 books over the last 18 months. I've built businesses before that. And you know what? I'm running as the outsider in this race because I think it's going to take an outsider to the political process to actually deliver on unifying this country.
All right, so let's chew on a few of the issues. On the banks, what are your major concerns here?
So I do have the concern that this is going to foster greater incentives for bad corporate behavior in the future. Many of those Silicon Valley tech startups should not have been parking that much money at Silicon Valley Bank. They did it because many of their founders got special favors in return, and I'm happy to talk about that. That kind of bad behavior, I fear, is going to be rewarded by the Biden administration's bailout. And it is a bailout, not of Silicon Valley Bank, but of those depositors. But I think we also need to talk about the deeper issue here,
Explain
which is
that
the behavior
to people.
of the
Explain
Federal
that to people.
Reserve.
Vivek, explain that because it's a distinction with a difference for the audience. I'm saying it's not a bailout because it's FDIC money that the banks pay into it. It's not tax dollars. I equated bailout with tax dollars. Why do you not like what's happening?
Well, I understand your point of view. There's 2 things that are wrong here. One is, do you create bad incentives for corporate behavior in the future? So no matter whose money you're using, if you're retroactively changing the rules of the road for someone who actually did not engage in good risk management, you're creating what they call moral hazard, an incentive to take more of that risk in the future. But the flip side is I also want to just modify something you said. Now, you recognize this in your monologue, but I think people need to understand this. Banks are not charitable institutions. When they pay into something, their depositors are indeed the ones who bear that cost indirectly passed through. So if the normal rules of the road for everyday Americans is that it's $250,000 cap, changing that rule after the fact means that those costs, even if it's the banks that are paying in, are really still going to be passed to the customers of those banks who are taxpayers. So it's not through the front door of taxpayers, but it is an indirect cost that still affects taxpayers nonetheless.
Yeah.
So for both of those reasons, I think functionally it is a bailout.
So my concern is this. Look, by that definition, every time a company pays any kind of penalty, it's a taxpayer-funded thing because everybody passes along their costs. But I'm worried that this is about regulators not being on the job. I'm not going to blame KPMG. It was an external audit. I don't know why that's how the system works. While they're just looking at the numbers that are given to them, I don't know what value that is to the shareholders and to the public, except that what proves that the bank can do math. Are you worried at all that, like in 2008, we are seeing a snafu within this system, where the regulators are not watching these things the way we need to and watching bad behavior?
So I think there's one point I'll make about the regulators and then one point about the deeper problem here. About the regulators, look, actually Silicon Valley Bank itself lobbied for years saying that it was not systemically important and allowing itself to operate according to lower risk standards, lower capital requirements, saying that, hey, guys, we're not systemically important. The government's never going to have to step in and save us, until this last weekend when Silicon Valley completely reversed that narrative and said, actually, we are systemically important. There's going to be a bank run unless you save Silicon Valley Bank, and that's what happened. So I think that's the problem with the regulatory regime is it's subject to capture. That's a bit of what happened here. But I think the deeper problem, and it's worth waking up to this because not enough people are talking about it, is the mistakes of the Federal Reserve over the last 25 years, okay? The Federal Reserve has been playing this game of trying to balance inflation with unemployment. They have done a horrific job. It's like playing God for the financial system, except God has a fat finger. They've gotten it wrong. And I think as president, one of my top objectives to actually unleashing the American economy is reforming the Federal Reserve itself to go back to its narrow purpose of making sure that the dollar is a stable unit of measurement, period.
Yes.
And if that had been the case, you wouldn't see these financial crises, probably not 2008, but certainly not this one where you saw whipsawing that created the failure of banks like Silicon Valley Bank. That's the hubris of the Federal Reserve, and this is not a partisan point, but you need leadership of somebody who's going to actually be able to come in from the outside and fix something that both parties now take for granted, and that's a mistake.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of News Nation's fact-driven coverage.